All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is In Liberty and Health. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. I've talked about the liberty movement quite a bit lately, and maybe I've had some unwarranted pessimism, and I would take that criticism and say you're probably right that I've been unwarrantedly pessimistic. But I think my guest today is going to help bring a little bit back of the liberty spirit, if you will. So before we get into things, make sure you go hit all the links below to find out what I got going on, find out where you can find my guest, all his great work. And yeah, that's about it. Acommoncrown.com as well. We got a couple shows coming up in the end of this month and then throughout the next month. So yeah, without further ado, let's rock and roll. What is up, everybody? My name is Kyle Matovic. I am the host of the In Liberty and Health podcast, where we talk all things liberty, health, and wellness, and beyond. My hope is to encourage and spread the message of liberty and physical and mental well-being. I hope you enjoy all the topics we talk about with our guests. We're on all major streaming platforms, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Man, I'm doing as good as anyone can do getting buried by his 13-year-old son on leg day.
I'm not going to apologize for not being on this podcast because I got to go see Metallica. So if that's a problem, kiss my ass.
Okay?
All right.
All right, everybody. Today I have with me Adrian Malagon. Did I say that correctly?
Malagon. You went really Spanish and ethnic with it. I like it. But you know, it works. It works.
Nice. How you doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. We were shooting the shit off air, and yeah, we both I think had our plates full, but I'm kind of glad that we got to make this work. So I guess first things first, give the audience a quick introduction to yourself and what you do and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I am Adrian Malagon. I'm the chair of the Libertarian Party of California. I'm also the chair of the California Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. I chair my own county here in Contra Costa County. I live in the Bay Area here in California, the belly of the beast, so to speak. And I was just recently appointed at large on the Libertarian National Committee. So I was Region 4 rep before then, but then I got appointed and moved up, I guess if you want to call it that, voluntold to be the at large. So that's how it works. It's congratulances and voluntold. That's how we operate here in the LP.
Well, I love both those words because I've used voluntold quite a bit. I haven't heard anybody else say it, so I'm glad somebody else kind of knows that parlance is just as well as I do. So it sounds like you really do a lot out there. I know Angela was formerly the chair of the Libertarian Party out there in California, and she's been on the show a bunch of times, and I absolutely love her. So what do you feel like you kind of had big shoes to fill, kind of taking over her role there?
Oh, absolutely. So she was chair of the caucus here in California, obviously before she took the big girl chair over at LP National. And she was also the chair of our largest affiliate here in California, which is Los Angeles. So I'm definitely no Angela, but I'm the best that we have, for better or for worse, following her. Really big shoes to fill, which is funny because she's so tiny. But yeah, I'm just doing the best that I can. And I've learned a lot from her. So just out here doing what I can.
Right. So I know this is perhaps maybe a little bit irrelevant to the conversation at hand, but when I think Bay Area, all I can think about is the old school Bay Area thrash metal bands. That was kind of like the big thing back in the 80s. The metal bands used to come out of the Bay Area in California and then, eventually go tour all over the country. Do you know anything about that, or what's it like out there?
I mean, I've heard a little bit of stuff. I know I have some friends that kind of go to like small venues and stuff. COVID really messed everything up and all. Then I don't know how much it's picked up or not since then. And I'm not huge on the metal or rock scene. Like I'll listen to stuff. I listen to everything but country pretty much. It's not something that particularly. I don't know. It's just not my jam. But if you like it, good for you. But I listen to a little bit of everything. Not really into the music. I don't get a chance to go out much. Like look at all the stuff that mostly LP events. That's when I get out of the house.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I have always enjoyed is the Libertarian Party events, honestly. I joke about them on the show, but honestly, I do enjoy kind of getting out and going to go see everybody. When the last one I went to, I want to say was last year's convention. I didn't make it out to this year's because I think it was in Philadelphia, and that's like 6 hours away from me. And like, sorry, I'm not driving 6 hours to go to a Libertarian Party event. That's a lot of time and money. And I think I had a show or something that weekend anyways. So yeah, it's always fun to kind of get out and about and spend time with people, because I know I'm sure everybody knows that we love to spend time on Twitter throwing bombs and just talking shit. But like, it really does remind you how great, at least for me, I'm by nature an optimist, so I absolutely love being around people. And I just think that it's like very lively to get out and have a few drinks and just shoot the shit with like-minded people.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that kept us sane here in California, especially during the lockdowns, just trying to get people were itching to meet in person and do things, and we're trying to keep that alive. So I'll go to meetups, not just in my county, but other, other counties that are nearby. I'm going to Fresno. We're having a big central area meetup. I kind of had all of our area coordinators pick some massive fundraising kind of meetup thing. So the central area one is in Fresno this Saturday. Driving down for that, it's about 3 hours for me. We're doing another one here in the Bay Area at a winery in about 2 weeks, or not, I'm sorry, not this weekend, but next weekend. So next Sunday, that'll keep me busy. And then we have one down south later this year, so in December. So, I mean, it is really a good place to meet people. And it's really funny. There's some people that I thought I wouldn't like meeting in real life that you see on Twitter every once in a while. Then you meet them, you're like, okay, that's just like a personality, or they're different online than they are in person. I'm probably sure that applies to me as well. But it is nice to meet like-minded people, especially in such a totalitarian, authoritarian, clusterfuck of a place that is California. I love it. It is geographically beautiful. You cannot beat the diversity of stuff that you can do here. Hiking, beach, good weather or no weather, however you want to look at it. It's really nice that it's the same pretty much everywhere. But our rulers, so to speak, have made it an inhabitable place, unfortunately. So it's really nice to meet like-minded people and get people involved and show everyone that we're not all the same here. There are some sane, normal Californians. They might be slightly autistic if they're libertarian, but it's okay. I'll take that over, the woke liberal craziness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, sorry about that. So, one thing that I heard, and perhaps this requires a little bit of background, but like I took my wife up to go meet Kelly Clarkson in New York City, and I remember looking around and thinking just like, oh my God, this is horrible. There's scaffolding everywhere. There's garbage all over the streets. It smells like piss, weed, and anxiety. And people have, yes, they've told me that California in some cities is worse. Is there any truth to that?
There is, at least. So I don't get down to Southern California very often. It's that NorCal SoCal thing. I just hate them because they exist. Not really, obviously, but it's nice weather. It's a great place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great people down there. Not to sound too Trumpian about it. A lot of great people,
Mhm.
But in San Francisco, that is definitely
best.
true. The best. I've really avoided the city. I used to go. I mean, when I worked in person, I used to commute, take BART every day, go in, and I've just seen it steadily get worse. And the last time I was in the city was probably about, I want to say about 4-ish months ago, just driving in. And I think it was like at 2 p.m. and it was barren. I mean, there was hardly anyone there outside of like homeless. And we're talking about 2 p.m., 3 p.m. on a Wednesday or something like that, right? And there was maybe a fourth of the normal foot traffic that you would see down Market Street or somewhere in Soma, which is south of Market, or the financial district, which is where all the big businesses are. And Twitter, you'll see Uber there, all that kind of stuff. They're a little bit further up, but it was kind of crazy to me. But you will see homeless people. You will literally see shit on the street that you have to avoid. It does smell like piss, regret, liberalism, all those wonderful smells. So that stuff I can attest to as being true. Like all the stories that you've heard, the needles on the street, you even drive down. I remember I was driving, I think it was that same day, or it might have been a week before. I was driving, I think it was in Diamond Heights or Pacific Heights. So those are the really high-end neighborhoods. I think Pelosi's house is in Diamond Heights, just to give some sort of perspective there. Huge mansion with a gate, one of her houses. And you had people that were outside with a hose and they were spraying down their driveways. And I know why they were spraying it down, right? It's because someone had just like taken a shit there or pissed there. And it's just part of, how most people go and they take the recycling out, the garbage, that whole thing. Part of that kind of cadence that you have to work into your routine is, if you're a San Franciscan, is hosing down your driveway or whatever, if you're one of the lucky ones that gets to have a house or a property there, right? So that stuff I can attest to. It is bad. Oakland is bad in different ways. I mean, there is a lot of construction or destruction, however you want to look at it,
Mm.
and a lot of cleanup and stuff, construction, all of that. I haven't seen as much of it there, but Oakland has different problems, and I'm about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the city on a good day, about 15 minutes from Oakland. So I try to avoid those places as much as possible and stay on my side of the East Bay because it's a little cleaner. I'm the darkest person here, so it's kind of nice. I feel safe. It's good. It's all good.
That was people could take that the very, very wrong way if they really paid attention. So I'm from southwestern Pennsylvania, so like obviously it's about like for like 45 minutes, maybe an hour on a bad day to get to Pittsburgh. And after going to New York, I remember people around here saying like, "Oh my God, Pittsburgh's so terrible." And then I went to New York City. I'm like, "Oh my God, this place makes Pittsburgh look like fucking Tel Aviv." I swear to God, like the streets here, like there's some bad parts, but like my God, New York, like just everywhere there's homeless people. If there's a closed down store with some stairs in front of it, there's going to be boxes in front of it where a homeless person's staying, and then they're
Right.
leaning up against the poles. There's piss and shit everywhere. And there's so much freaking foot traffic. I mean, it was very, very weird for me because I've grown up in small towns all around here. So kind of getting out and about there was just very, very strange. So I have to imagine California is probably always like that. But then, I'm guessing you probably live in like a suburb or something like that as well.
Yeah, so I do live in the suburbs now. I did live in the city for probably like 5 or 6 years, for too long, however, and then I moved to the East Bay again. So I was in the East Bay, then went to the city for a while, then moved back because I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and you could see
Sure.
crime or shittiness just progressing in certain neighborhoods. Like I used to live in the Mission District, and I could see like the really bad parts were 16th and Mission, and I was on 26th and Valencia, which is just one block up from Mission, and I could see it getting worse and worse. You see more homeless people, you see more just crime, more vandalism, more shit and stuff on the streets, and all of it getting progressively worse. And that's when I was like, it's time to go. I'll go back to the East Bay and go to a little quieter part and all of that. But there are parts that do look like a third world country. I was joking earlier. I am Mexican, so I've been to Mexico my fair share of times. There are places that look legitimately worse than some of the worst parts of Mexico. I mean, not counting cartel activity and all of that, of course. But it looks like a third world country. You would be. I remember this was, I think it's 2019. I mean, this has been an issue for a while. It's just gotten worse. And I remember there was like some article in the New York Times about a family, and Gavin Newsom, he wasn't the mayor at the time. I think it was still Ed Lee, but because Gavin Newsom had just left the mayor's office. I think it was Ed Lee, but anyway, someone got really mad, and so the New York Times wrote this article about they followed like this family that had come from somewhere in the East Coast, and they had come for a week to see all the things, the Golden Gate Bridge, the pier, all the touristy stuff, and they realized day one that they went to the Ross on Market Street and they had to buy shoes. So they bought shoes for the duration of their trip there. Sometimes they had to buy them again because it was just like they saw the tenderloin and all these needles and all this stuff, and they didn't want to use their regular shoes, so they bought throwaway shoes. Was kind of the point of the article, that there's some parts of San Francisco that look really nice, and then you turn a corner, and if it's the wrong corner, holy shit, it's
Yeah.
not great. So this has been an
Wow.
ongoing issue. It's just gotten progressively worse, no pun intended, or pun intended, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, I got you, man. So it seems like you keep a relatively good head on your shoulders and a similar outlook like I do. Like you can just kind of laugh shit off and not take stuff too personally and stay relatively positive. Um, I think if I was in your position, I would be like, get me the fuck out of here already. Like, lockdowns here were pretty rough. I'm absolutely sure that in California they were worse. The story I always use is that like my wife got handed a slip and she was told like, hey, show this to the police if you're out driving to get to work. Yeah, stuff like that. And then, me as an auto mechanic, I got laid off. So it was pretty disturbing. Why how do I want to phrase this? When it comes to the Libertarian Party and your hope for, achieving liberty in California, what kind of keeps the flame of liberty burning for you out there?
So I think what it is, we experience a lot of the same stuff that you talked about, and seeing a lot of this firsthand. I think what I'm really waiting for ultimately is the collapse. because something has to rise from the ashes. This is not sustainable, and the collapse will happen here in the Bay Area, and then it'll trickle down. Most stuff happens in the Bay Area. The worst policies get instituted here first. Sometimes it's LA, but it's usually San Francisco or some other part of the Bay Area, whether it's Berkeley or Oakland. Berkeley's another one I want to shout out as a place that I hate to go to and I avoid at all costs. But I think that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the ultimate collapse. This is not sustainable, and something has to give. In the current system now, a lot's not going to change. There's the psychological element. I learned this. I was running a campaign for a libertarian in Hayward, which is in the Bay Area, and we lost to a communist, like a literal communist. The guy had the communist star as part of his logo for his campaign. And just gave no fucks, right? And he was a Berkeley grad, very stereotypical progressive type mentality sort of thing. And people are afraid to be on the quote unquote losing side. It's a psychological thing. So I really hate when people say everyone's libertarian, they just don't know it. That's not true. They agree with a lot of the things that we have to say, but ultimately they want to be on the winning team. So they're going to vote Republican, or in this case, Democrat, because they run the table here, right? But if that doesn't really exist anymore, or it's just beyond salvaging, and you can't make any sort of argument for why that system should be kept there, then something has to take its place. And there's nothing to suggest that the Libertarian Party can. We're making good strides in notoriety and putting our name out there in recruitment, bringing in new members, just getting our message out. And I think that that resonates with a lot of people. And it really starts by word of mouth. So you have these meetups, and it doesn't have to be, business. We don't have to get into parliamentary shit or whatever. But what we do is get them out, get them involved, and let them see that there are other cool people. So libertarians aren't people that want to like own nukes and whatever. It's that old meme of the guy that goes to a city council meeting and it's like libertarians don't want to own nuclear arms. They just want to be able to like paint their shed green or whatever, and they have to get a permit. And people start realizing that this is a thing. And it's funny because I've met a lot of new people that come and they get brought by other members. It's just a friend that maybe said something that was liberty oriented. Okay, hey, come and meet some people that kind of think like me. You're not going to be fully bought in. They're people that come in and they're ready to go and they're ready to get combative, and they realize, oh, okay, a lot of that stuff actually makes sense, and I'm okay with that. I'm still not on board with this for environmental reasons, or I still really like the cops or whatever. It's okay, I can work with that as long as you agree with some of this stuff. The hatred of the police and the deep state and all that stuff will come later, but I can work with you at least willing to come meet new people and have a conversation. There are a lot of Californians that way, that especially here in the most restrictive parts, believe it or not. So I live in a truly purple county, which is also really nice. There are some counties that are a little bit worse. Obviously, San Francisco is its own city and county. Alameda is where Berkeley and Oakland are. I live in a purple county, so it makes it a little bit easier for me. And then Orange County is probably the only other true purple county in California. The others are either red, there is red people, believe it or not, or blue. So that's kind of the thing that keeps the hope alive, is people wanting to get involved and seeing that there is an alternative, but ultimately just waiting. For me personally, it's waiting for this ultimate collapse, which I think is imminent. There's really no way around it.
Sure. Yeah, I completely understand that. So now when it comes to kind of turning people over to libertarianism, I hear a lot of people say that, oh, you can't have leftists. And in my mind, I'm always asking, like, well, what the fuck is a leftist anymore? And what the fuck is a right winger anymore? Because, like, if you look at Donald Trump and what he's running on now, he's literally a center left Democrat.
He's an 80s Democrat.
90s,
He's an 80s
yeah,
Democrat, 80s,
right.
90s Democrat. Yeah.
Like completely identical to that. But he's considered, like, if you would say you're a right winger to the average person, that's what they're going to think. And like a lot of the libertarians that I'm sure you talk to just as well as I do would kind of boil it down to like, okay, well, left is recognition of hierarchy, or I'm sorry, right is recognition of hierarchy, and then left is equal you know, things being equal. Equality, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry. uh, do you find it's difficult to convert over progressives, or do you think that it's just more of like, kind of like you said, people just want to be on the winning side and they loosely agree with these things so they feel more comfortable in this kind of space?
I think that it's significantly easier to approach right wingers, Republicans, whatever you want to call them. The thing is, it's funny that you brought that up. I don't think they know themselves. They don't know how to identify. We use these terms very broadly, whether it's left wing, liberal, progressive, Democrat. Those are not all the same, right? And people don't even know how they identify or where they fall into that spectrum. You can talk to a progressive and he'll say, I hate the Democrats, and it's because they're not progressive enough, right? And they don't really know what it means to be a classical liberal, which is what traditionally libertarians are, and they don't understand that. It's a lot easier to talk to Republicans because they're on board with, especially, it kind of just depends on the area that you're in. So here in California, the strategy is more to talk to Republicans because they're used to losing here, right? They haven't won since like the Reagan years. So they're open to other parties to a certain extent, not the establishment types. I'm not talking about the people that would, take a bullet for Kevin McCarthy or something like that. But I mean, the ones that are more probably MAGA oriented or just want to see some sort of disruption. Like a lot of the people that we've gotten to come in and gotten involved didn't vote for Trump. They didn't like Trump, but they liked the disruption and they liked some of the stuff that he had to say when he was making his first bout around for president. He's kind of obviously dropped off since then, but it's just they wanted to hear something different, something that wasn't allowed or permitted or however you want to look at it. And those are the people that are easiest to target because they started to see first and foremost how bad things have gotten for them. These are the people that went to city council meetings or are still going to city council meetings or school board meetings and getting shut out and being told that they can't they can't have any sort of say in their kids' curricula or whatever the case might be. So that's probably the way to do it. If you're in a really deep red state, probably somewhere in the South or the Midwest, it's probably easier to get, left wingers or progressives or whatever on your side because you're going to agree about decriminalization of drugs. You might agree on, I mean, the left used to be anti-war, now they're not. What a time to be alive. But you might find other things that they might be a little bit more susceptible to, a distrust of the police, for instance, or a dislike of the police. So you might be able to do that. It kind of just depends on the area that you're in. It's the whole Ron Paul thing. When he would go to New Hampshire, he had a different speech than he would when he went to like Maryland or Vermont. And it's not that the message is being diluted. It's that I know that we agree here. So let's talk about the things that if we agree, as Aristotle used to say, if you can't have a conversation unless you agree on first premises. So if you agree on these premises, then we can start building off of that. We may hit a roadblock and that's fine, but we haven't determined that each other is crazy or ridiculous. And then we can move past you're literally Hitler and you're some lovey-dovey hippie, all this hyperbolic bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of strange to watch this whole election play out because everybody's nobody's really dying for Biden to get back in again, but I think people just realize that like, hey, the right from their perspective seems absolutely insane. So whatever isn't that is what they're willing to support. But I think kind of like you said, Trump has kind of dropped off and yeah, the disruption's cool and all that, but I think he's lost a lot of that energy that he had back 8 years ago now almost. And I don't think he's going to win against Biden in 2024 if that's who the nominee is. But I think people still want him regardless. And one interesting thing that I've kind of pondered over the last couple of days after Trump kind of came out against abortion or for abortion, like against being pro-life, it kind of confirmed my belief that people are just kind of going by whatever their leader says. Like if I think if Trump came out and was very, very pro-war tomorrow, like take for example when he bombed Iran or killed Soleimani.
Which time? Oh yeah, Soleimani only happened one time, but the bombing.
Yeah. Right. Well, when he drone striked Soleimani, everybody was ready to go to war with Iran. So it's kind of like, I think it's just, whenever their side's in charge, it's whatever, their leader says goes. So now I think this kind of gives you a little bit of an opportunity as someone that's kind of in a leadership position of one certain sector of the Libertarian Party. I think this is kind of where it's important to have good leaders because I think people are looking for good leaders. And what we have now, I think, are bad leaders generally because they're not leading people to what I would deem as good values. So, what do you think is kind of the best way to kind of help spread this message? In my opinion, it's always been like, good leadership and living by the values that we share and we want to see in the world.
I mean, I think it's by doing and showing. I mean, that's kind of the thing that's going to do it. But I think there has to be something, as much as I don't care. I mean, I'm all about decentralization and everything at the local level. Stuff at the federal level doesn't really matter. Who cares what some asswipe's doing in some White House 3,000 miles away, at least from me, right? But I think it comes to that. And it's about showing that we're not afraid to do certain things. So, I mean, at I don't know if you saw this, but so LP National, we did a thing on the LNC where we filed for a conservatorship against Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell. And I mean, it got a lot of, I mean, 95% of the feedback was positive from all sides. Like, I mean, you had some liberals going in there and commenting on stuff. I saw there was a Newsweek article. I think it was picked up by The Guardian too. I could be mistaken. There was a few outlets that picked it up. And if you go into the comments section, a lot of it was, I wish the GOP had the balls to do something like this, but they've clearly shown that they haven't. And people are like, oh, good, this isn't going to go anywhere. Then you had the non-fun, the Karens, right? Well, that's not going to accomplish. They're not going to get that. And it's like, yeah, that's not. We're going to still try. Of course, they're not going to let us have conservatorship over Biden. Could you imagine? I mean, the guy can't even. He doesn't even get to go to the bathroom by himself anymore. Probably for multiple reasons, let alone having someone else, run his life or whatever. But it's that kind of stuff showing that we're not going to. We see this for what it is. We have people, as Angelo so brilliantly said in that article, people that you wouldn't leave home alone. Right, that you wouldn't trust to be home alone by themselves, running the largest country and arguably the most important country in the world. Like, that's insane, right? So we need to show people that this is the case. So it comes through not just doing, but also and leading in that fashion, but actually having the messaging that backs it up and showing people that we're not afraid to call people tyrants, to call them authoritarians. At the LNC level, we have Operation Warhawk removal, which is going to be pinning people against the most egregious warhawks across the country at a federal level and challenging them. And we may not have candidates for each race, but it doesn't mean that we can't, have some sort of, I don't want to say negative ad campaigning, but I mean, it's negative for them, but it's showing who they really are. Right. And waking people up to this sort of just ridiculousness that's been going on for so long. So that's going to play a huge part into the whole thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Kind of shifting over to some of the foreign policy stuff. I know the Libertarian Party has been pushing a lot of defend the guard stuff, and that actually seems to be going very, very well. But everybody's talking about Ukraine and Russia right now, and the one thing that I always harp on in this show and on Twitter all the time is the coming Cold War, well, hot war with China, because that is the government's big focus. If you look at every single NDS, every single official, when they vote, when they talk about this stuff, all the military buildup is going towards China. Russia is just kind of like, the mid boss here, the guy that's like, oh, well, we're going to roll over him. And then they're not talking about, going to a full hot war with Russia. They're talking about going to a full on hot war with China. And this is where a lot of the Republicans fail as well, because they're super, super, super hawkish on China. And the main reason why they want to stop funding the war in Ukraine is so that we can go fight a war with China. Like, all right, well, you guys had me until here. So like, I like this idea of Operation Warhawk removal. Let's show the public, Marco Rubio saying we should blow up Chinese warships. They're fucking 3 miles, 3,000, 5,000 miles away. What the fuck are we doing over there? Who cares? Or do you really think they're going to come over here? We'll blow their shit out of the water if they actually pose a threat to the United States. If they really posed a threat, do you think we wouldn't have like nuked Beijing already? No, they just want to maintain global hegemony. And China goes into a country with a briefcase. We go in there with a bomb, and it just so happens people don't like to be blown up. People like to get money.
That's the thing, right? And everyone seems to either forget this or not know it. And I think it's a combination of both, because I've seen it on both sides. That's how China operates. They don't have, they have no desire to actually go to war. I mean, if provoked, I'm assuming they want to keep Asia separate, and they want to control over what they perceive to be their territories, right? And they want to be the big powerhouse in in the Asian world, right? Whatever that means for them. And they have no problem, like you said, taking a briefcase to Africa or any other country that's willing to take their money and doing it that way. That's, I guess, the smart way to do it. That's how they've infiltrated the US and buying all these businesses and properties and doing that while we want to go. Who was it? I saw something earlier today. It was like one of the actors, one of those stereotypical actors that basically said, if you don't want to, if you're not down, I'm not quoting this correctly, but it was something like, if you're not down for World War III, you're a giant pussy and you don't deserve to live in America or something like that. I forgot who the actor was. It was I think it was Sean Penn. That was the one. I think there was something making the rounds either yesterday or today. And it's just, that kind of mentality is so stupid on every level. And it just shows that just because you have a platform and you're the loudest doesn't necessarily mean that people should listen to you, because you really don't understand the nuance of the situation. And then the funny thing is what you just said too, the whole, like, let's stop, you have the really neocon. Well, I mean, the super hardcore neocons are we can fight everything on both fronts, right? We can
Yeah,
fight Russia
right.
and fight China because we're America, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the more, what would be the more, I guess, conservative type of Republican saying, well, we should stop Russia so that we can focus all of our energy on China. I mean, that's not better, but I guess like if I had to choose between the two, I would rather only fight one power
Right.
than
Not
two.
both.
Not both, especially not at the same time. But ideally, we wouldn't be, meddling in either of them. But it's just really funny that they think that because this presupposes, right, that we have this money, so that we have the money to fight Russia now, despite being $33 trillion in debt. Like we can't even fathom that amount of money. Like if you really stop to think about it, and it's just a number to people. They just see it and it's like, oh, it's 33 trillion. It's whatever, right? No one understands. It's as if that money exists and now you want to just, okay, well, we can just reallocate it, just move some numbers around, do your magic, and then we can just ship that to China and everything is good, as if that's somehow going to be better, not just on a global scale but for us economic. It really blows my mind that this is the mentality, and these are the people that are in power. Right? It's insane. The whole thing is just absurd.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I know you've probably seen it making the rounds too, but the Biden administration spent $1 trillion in 90 days. In 3 months, $1 trillion. And like what, everybody knocks Trump for his COVID spending, and I definitely do too. But like if you look at the graph of, pre-COVID spending, it was a consistent ramp up. And then 2020 happened, it shot through the roof. And then 2021, it came down, but it was still almost double 2019 levels.
It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you remember this movie. I might be dating myself, but there was the movie, I must have been young. I forgot. I think it was literally called Blank Check. I think it was like a Disney movie, one of those like made for TV movies.
Sure.
And it was a kid who came across what it sounds like a blank check. And he wrote $1 million when it was still a lot of money. And it took him, I think it took him about 3 months or maybe a little less. I don't really remember I mean, it's been, 30 plus years since I've seen it or whatever. But the joke about that movie, if you think about it as an adult, is, well, he didn't know better. He rented a castle, and then I think he got a bouncy house and bought whatever the newest video game was and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, you can forgive him because he's a kid, and it took him however many days to spend $1 million. And I forgot how the movie ended. But the fact that the Biden administration did that with 1 trillion over 90 days, you're talking about adults that should theoretically have some sort of economic sense, just blow like it's like they watched this movie and said, well, we can do this with $1 trillion, it's fine, because the government also has a blank check and they just think that they can do whatever they want. Except that in the movie, I'm assuming that there's something happens and the kid has to come to terms with what he did because it was someone's money. The government doesn't have that, or they have the luxury of not having to worry about that, right? So they continue to spend and spend and spend, and everything to them is it reminds me of the whole Pentagon thing where when the plane, just because 9/11 just happened, when the plane went into that side and the whole thing became, where there's, I think it was $600 billion unaccounted for. And the first thing I said was, I mean, I think I was only, well, I said this after the fact. I was young, but I said, I'm pretty sure that's a rounding error. And sure enough, I mean, it's what it was. For them, it's a rounding error. And think about how absurd that is, because they can just play with all of this money as if it's monopoly. I mean, it is monopoly money, not as if for them. But the whole thing is just, it's beyond absurd.
Yeah, it's so funny because like when you put it that way, like for them, a rounding error is $600 billion. For like the average person, a rounding error of like $50 for a lot of people, at least where I live, that's like, okay, well, it's gonna be a little bit tighter this pay, just
Right.
for now.
That's between
And
rent and milk. Like I've been there. Like, I mean, living here in the Bay Area, I've had to decide between rent and am I going to buy milk for the cereal? And that's the only thing that I can afford to eat. Now I eat cereal just because I like it. But I mean, that's the thing, right? And they don't think about this stuff, and they want to think about talking or working for the common man. And it's $600 billion. We can't fathom that as lowly, poor individuals. And like you said, $50 is a lot to a lot of people. And that's not being hyperbolic. That's the difference between maybe, your kids getting shoes or having eggs for dinner as opposed to for breakfast, sort of a thing. That's a big deal, especially now when eggs are $12 a carton or whatever it was the last time I went to the store. I don't even remember.
yeah, man, I couldn't imagine being in California paying for that stuff. And now, obviously, like I'm sure that you're your salary and stuff out there, at least for people living in California, is probably higher than here in Pennsylvania. But like, I it sucks to live in a state like Pennsylvania because like everything's cheap, but everything's cheap. So like you want to move out of here, you're fucked. Like you're gonna make a little tiny bit of money on your house, you'll be good. But like you're gonna move somewhere here. If you want to leave from like California or New York, I remember when we were in New York, it was like you could pay $700 or $800 a month to park your car in a garage in the city. I'm like, that is insanity. I couldn't fucking imagine.
It's about the same in San Francisco, give or take. I remember that much. I didn't have a car the entire time I lived there, but I do have friends that still live there and obviously have to pay for it. And sometimes the garage isn't even in your building. So you still have to walk 3 or 4
Yes.
blocks to whatever the structure is. And then you have to wait, you have to account. So if you have to go somewhere, you basically have to leave your apartment or your condo or whatever, maybe 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes before you actually have to, because you have to walk to the parking garage. Then you
Mhm.
have to wait. Sometimes the cars are blocked or whatever, so you have to wait for the attendant to go get it or something. It's like a whole thing. It's a journey just to get your car out. So that's why people that live in San Francisco tend to kind of stay there. And I'm assuming it's almost the same for New York. But California is, I always used to say, and it wasn't a joke. It used to be that anytime I went on holiday anywhere, it was cheaper for me than staying here, which is really, really absurd. I mean,
Right.
the last time I left, that's not counting DC. We had an LMNT meeting in DC, and that is the most
Mhm.
expensive place. A cup of black coffee and a triple shot of espresso. I thought that he'd messed up my order somehow and thought that I got one of those froofy girly drinks or something. No, but it was $16. And
Ooh,
I could, yeah, at a Starbucks, right? And
god
that was
damn.
just insane to me. Yes, that was absurd. I was sticker shocked as a Californian, and I was just too early to deal with this. So I kind of bitched at the guy, and then I was like, it's not your fault. I get it, but you have to understand, I'm a Californian and I'm sticker shocked, and that doesn't happen because I'd just gone. Well, I mean, I think this was earlier this year or last year. I went to Texas where I was at a hotel bar. We were waiting before a UFC fight that we were going to go see, and it was me and one of my buddies. We were waiting for the girls to get ready, and I was like, okay, I'll buy the first round or whatever. So I bought 2 beers, and so the guy, they're ready. So of course, as soon as we order the beers, they're ready, and we're about to head out. And so the guy brings me the tab, and he says, so I said, oh no, it was like I think it was $11, 11.50 or something like that. I said, oh no, this is I meant for both of us. Was my immediate reaction. He goes, yeah, two beers, and he shows me and makes me look like I'm retarded. And I went, oh wow. I said, well, I'm not retarded. I'm from California. And then I just stopped talking. I was like, nope, that's not helping the situation. Sorry. No, that's great. Thank you. And that's what I'm used to when I go someplace. I mean, when I went to Freedom Fest in Memphis, things were super cheap compared to what they are here. And you're right. I never really thought about it in the inverse. It is significantly harder for someone to leave their area to someone else, even if it's a lateral move as far as
Yeah.
income or demographics are concerned. We have it a little bit easier here, but then now, Gavin Newsom's trying to get every little bit that he can. So he's taxing people even after the fact when they've left
Yeah.
California or trying to do that. I mean, I guess good luck with that. But I mean, that just shows you how much we're hurting all the way around for every given pet project that's happening here at any given time.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes to something you said earlier about the streets essentially being empty at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. That like, man, that should be packed in a city. And if it's empty, then that means like people are fleeing like crazy. So I kind of wanted to pivot back to some of the stuff that you're doing in the Libertarian Party. So when it comes to defend the guard, how has that been? And do you know a lot about what's going on like in your area? And do you think that there's reason for optimism there?
So I know that a lot of states have been successful and are like as far as legislature is concerned, we have
Sure.
not been that fortunate yet in California. I'm hoping that we will be in the future. We have a lot of veterans here that are obviously very passionate about that. I would like to at some point meet Dan McKnight. I know that he's been very pivotal in this whole thing, and I think that would be really great. And so on that front, I mean, I know that states have been successful, but that's kind of died down a little bit as far as me hearing about it. Not that things aren't happening, but you can only give updates, and everything is such a slow process. We want instant gratification. We're Americans, right? So we want to see results
Yeah.
now, and it's going to take some time. I know that this was a really big thing, probably about a year ago, almost a year ago exactly. And so some of the stuff is moving up in legislatures across different states, and they're trying to make moves to do something. Here in California, we've kind of put a pause to it for now, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to revisit it. So I can't really speak too much to what's going on in other states outside of I know that it's been moving forward. how quickly is a different story.
Sure, sure. So obviously we have an election coming up as well. What's kind of going on for candidates in California? I'm sure that you guys probably have like a little bit of a slate or kind of some ideas when it comes to like messaging or good candidates to run.
We're hoping to get that. So right now, so Angela just made an ask of all chairs across the country to kind of get a slate of candidates so that LP National can provide support and start promoting them and doing stuff.
Mhm.
Here in California, a lot. I'm not going to lie, a lot of people are a little. They're hesitant to do it because I mean they've seen the results we had. We got completely swept here in California last year with elections, and it was bad. I mean, we had one of the highest ranking libertarians that was a county supervisor for one of the a larger county here in California, and he lost because unions hate anyone that's not going to back their play, and they will put, without batting an eye, hundreds of thousands of dollars behind an opponent's campaign just because. So it's particularly difficult here in California, and even like I said, that campaign that I ran here in the Bay Area, we lost to a communist. So it's really hard for people to get amped up about that stuff because you're asking for a lot, right? If you're running for even a local race, you're asking for probably volunteer time. So I ran the campaign as a volunteer. Everyone on staff was a volunteer, and they do a lot of stuff, and it's usually a lot of the same people, so they get burned out. So we're going to try to refocus our efforts some other way. I'm trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. Maybe just allocating efforts toward what I'm going to be doing is promising serious candidates that have good messaging, that are really solid on doing things, is instead of just kind of throwing some money at them, is they need experience, they need resources, they don't need money, they need to know what to do and how to best do it. So we're going to try to invest what we're going to do is invest money into campaign strategists and managers, not necessarily here in California, but that know what they're doing and kind of have them on retainer so that they can give advice when needed for specific situations where some of us just lack experience and we don't know what we're doing in that
Sure.
specific area. So I think that that's a better use of our time. And it's a matter here in California anyway, it's a matter of pinpointing the winnable things when
Mhm.
these candidates come forward and decide to throw their hat in the ring, because there is nothing more I guess devastating or blackmailing for someone than to allocate countless hours towards this particular candidate and then not seeing a return or seeing a devastating loss. And that's what we had. It wasn't just a California thing, it was across the country. So there are certain things, like for the Operation Warhawk thing, for instance, that's going to be better for other smaller states where you can unseat someone, or you can run a campaign against someone that will give them a run for their money. And we may not win as libertarians, but they will lose, and we might get the lesser of the two evils. We're not promoting the lesser of the two evils, but that'll make them see that they have to get better on certain things. Like, I'm really tired of people talking about libertarians spoiling races. But no, we didn't spoil anything for you. Your candidates suck, and you just need to do better. And if you want to do better, then you have an option to do that. But then you think that you're going to lose on the other front. So you kind of have to play this game. So at least here in California, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find one or two serious candidates at the very least that we can run and have some wins under our belt. If not, maybe provide a spoiler, not by throwing a candidate in the ring, but perhaps by doing door knocking against the people that are running. If it's just one person running, because running for the sake of running isn't always going to be beneficial. Sometimes I understand what the allure is for that, but we really have to allocate our resources to not burn people out, because our bench isn't deep and our volunteers only have so much time to do X, Y, or Z. So we have to make the best use of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I really, really like that idea of kind of, and this kind of what I've always ran with too, is that, if your candidates suck so bad, then we wouldn't have to run somebody theoretically against them. Like, you don't see anybody dying on the cross for saying, hey, we should run against Rand Paul or Thomas Massey. Like, you
Right.
don't see that. So like they should kind of be like North Stars, and then hey, if you appeal to like that crowd, then you really wouldn't have to worry about this. Now, when it comes to the federal campaigns, I think the two are well, there's four that I think are really kind of getting the most attention. And number one would probably be Josh Smith. Number two would be Rechtenwald. Number three, I would say, is probably Chase Oliver, and then number four is Mike Termott. Um, I know you can't give any endorsements on any of them, but I guess I kind of want your opinion on what the temperature of the water is for you and the people that you're kind of responsible for.
I think if I had to guess, just the temperature seems to be it's a Rechtenwald Smith situation, mainly just because I mean they're good at the mess. I mean Rechtenwald's incredibly bright. For anyone that doesn't know him, you should read one of his books. You should listen to one of his podcasts, his several podcast appearances on like Tom Woods or Dave Smith or whatever. He's incredibly bright. He's an academic, came from the left, and he has a lot of good stuff to say. Josh Smith has always obviously been very good with messaging. His video that came out was fire. I don't know if you saw his promo video.
Yes.
That was, I think it was made by Dan Smots, and of course the guy's a genius. But that was done really well. So I think that's going to be that's going to be what it's going to come down to, really, if I'm to be honest about it. I can't endorse either of them. We're going to see how things play out, but I need to see more from all of them all the way around. I don't see I see these kind of lackluster town halls. I get emails all the time from some of the other presidential candidates about wanting to do a town hall and stuff, and 11 to 15 people are showing up on Zoom or whatever. They need to change the strategy. They need to do something else. I'm not I'm not their campaign manager. I'm not the one telling them what to do, but they need to do something to garner excitement. I've met most of these presidential candidates in person or been in an event where they've been speaking, and they don't hold the attention of the room. I haven't seen Rechtenwald speak personally, but I would imagine that he could garner that kind of that respect, and he could get your attention. Josh, I've obviously seen speak in person, and he can command a room when he needs to. So that's what it's really going to come down to: is who can. The pitch has to be who is going to represent LP interests the best all the way across the board. You may not agree with everything, or you may not like that they had a mean tweet here, or that they said something that you didn't think was particularly funny, but who is going to be the person that is going to represent your values that you can turn to and be proud of that guy, right? And I think that's what they really need to focus on at the end of the day. And I think as far as that's concerned, there's two front runners for that. The rest really need to, and they announced, the latest, right? So it was Josh Smith and then Rechtenwald, if I remember the order correctly, while the others like Chase Oliver, Mike Termott, Lars Mapstead, Hornberger, all announced at least months ago, if not almost a year ago. So the fact that they're kind of that, they're informal polls, of course, but the fact that they're that far down in the informal polls means that being first isn't always the best. I think that's kind of it looks like the Josh Smith and Rechtenwald campaigns are doing the Apple strategy. Apple wasn't the first for a lot of this stuff, but they ended up being the best. Little bias there. I have Apple everything, but I do think that I'm Bay Area, man. I'm California. What do you expect? Silicon Valley's a stone's throw away. Tim Cook and we hung out at a party. Well, we didn't hang out at a party, but I was at a party that he was at. He wasn't. I didn't even see him, but I know that he was there. But it's just one of those things where it'll be interesting to see who really wants it, who's going to be willing to put in the effort and the work. They're going to win, and they have to come to California. I mean, we're charging presidential candidates to come here. We are the largest delegation in the country. We always have and will have again over 100 delegates, and all roads to DC go through California. So like us or not, they have to come and make the pitch to the California delegation. I can't make it for them. So I think that it looks like Rechtenwald is coming. It looks like Josh Smith is coming. The other presidential candidates are kind of like, I don't know. I guess if you think you can lock up all the other states when it comes before national convention, I mean, have fun with that. But it's really gonna, you have to come here and you have to make your pitch to California, because I can say, in all honesty, that California does not appear to be sold on anyone that I have seen just yet. It's even all across the board as far as I know.
Wow, that's kind of surprising. I think you're right in your assessment that it's going to be a toss-up between Rechtenwald and Josh. Now, me personally, I like Josh a little bit more, just because I personally know Josh, and I've talked.
I'm so sorry for that, by the way.
He's been on the show. He was, I think, my 6th guest. I can't believe it was almost.
He's from my county. He was here in Contra Costa County back then before he moved to Iowa. So I'll mess with him every once in a while.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I would love to meet him in person sometime. I don't know if we're going to make it out to our convention this year. The wife and I are have things planned, so we'll kind of see what happens. Yeah, I'm like I said, I think it's going to be a toss-up between those two, and I haven't seen enough from Rechtenwald yet, so I don't have a good enough opinion on it. I see everybody saying that he's a boring academic, but I'll hold judgment till I can kind of see that for myself. I don't know what to think, but I'm really hoping that, it's a lot better than Joe Jorgensen's campaign. And a lot of people knocked her. I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with Joe Jorgensen. I just think that she doesn't have the, as the kids say now, riz, or the style, or she doesn't engage with people the same way that a lot of the people that are running now necessarily do. So I think she was solid on all the issues, and people would say, oh well, she had that one bad tweet, but like I feel like people blew that up because they wanted it to, they were looking for something. If it wasn't that, it would have been something else.
I use that tweet all the time. That's the most infamous tweet I think in at least recent LP history. So it is
Yes.
fun to do it. But what I really would like to see, I will say that I think that toss up stands, and I do want to see Rechtenwald more and see how he engages in front of people, because I haven't seen that. I've never heard him speak in person. I've never been in an event where he's been at. I've never had a chance to meet him in person. So I would like that opportunity, and hopefully he comes to California, and I'd like to see what he has to offer. But what I don't want to see, and I do agree with the Joe Jorgensen stuff. I think she got a bad rap. She was very solid. She was a solid libertarian in a lot of stuff. I think she got a lot of, I think it was a campaign thing. I mean, the I'm, or what was it? Let her speak sort of thing. That was just like that. All of that was very cringe and terrible. And whoever thought that was a good idea should never be running campaigns again. But I will say that I don't want. I've seen a little bit of this on Twitter, and I do hope that it doesn't escalate too much. I don't want to see negativity going back and forth between Josh and Recta. I don't want to see any negative campaigning. Joe Jorgensen was able to do her thing without negative campaigning. I don't think we don't want to fight ourselves. We're still on the same side, and let the delegates decide who. Like, the negative campaigning should be reserved for whoever the GOP candidate is, whoever the DNC candidate ends up being, if Biden is still alive or whatever. But that's what I want to see. I don't want to see Josh attack Rechtenwald. I don't want to see Rechtenwald attack Josh or any of the others, really. Just let people don't like the negativity, especially within the party. We've had enough of it. The infighting has got to stop. And I know that they're not infighting. They're on the same side. They're just vying for the same bid. But I think that people are going to be more responsive to a positive message. You should choose me because I'm more qualified in XYZ respect, not this guy sucks, or this guy's boring, or this guy doesn't know what he's doing, or whatever. So I hope that they kind of pivot on that. It hasn't gotten too bad yet, but I have seen a little bit. I have seen some blows thrown. So I hope that they keep it clean. Angela did a really good job. I think that's one of the things that also won her the chair's race. She made a pact with the rest of the chair candidates to not have a negative campaign, and she never said a negative some of them broke it a little bit and would say negative things, and she was steadfast in making sure her qualifications and her enthusiasm, her energy, her vision for the party was what spoke to people, not this guy sucks, this guy looks like Uncle Fester. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, I hope. All that stuff that she could have said. But you let other people do it for you. Let other people fight your battles for you. If you want other libertarians to attack let them do it. You're not going to find a libertarian that's shy when it comes to attacking another libertarian. So let them do it. Keep your head above water, and then just stay steadfast.
Yeah, no, I really like that message as well. And I agree that Angela, I think, did a very, very good job. And I think that she's kind of been a little bit of an unsung hero as well. And, kind of done her due diligence to not go out of her way to smear anybody. And when I had her on last couple months back, I remember her saying that I think her and I were going back and forth about like blocking people. And I think she's right to do it. If you have people who are just going to relentlessly pester you, then sorry.
I won't block. I do take a little bit of a nuance. So I won't block people. I will bully them relentlessly until they block me. Because I feel like I don't know who you are. Like, you follow me, you decide. So it's, unless I think I've only blocked, I think, one person that like legitimately was harassing me or threatened to like kill me or something. I'm like, okay, you're weird. I'm not scared, but I just don't want to see, death tweets or whatever, or DMs. So I think I've only blocked one person for that reason. The rest I just bully into submission. And that's where Angela and she's really nice. It's really funny that she gets this rap as this like really mean lady that does X, Y. She's the sweetest person ever.
She is.
And she'd rather block and not deal with you. Whereas I'll throw a punch or two if one is thrown at me. I never throw the first jab, but I will fight. I can't, I'm not swole like you. So I have to fight, using my words and stuff. I do need to hit the gym at some point in time. So I use the verbal attacks, not the physical ones, because I can't, and that's just where we're at. But yeah, so I try not to block people if I don't have to. I will just bully them into submission and hope that they block me. And it usually works. I mean, or just ignore them and then they kind of go away. They feed off this negativity. Like they'll say stuff and I'll just laugh at something that I see. Someone's tweeting, like this just happened, I think last week. I was up sending emails or doing whatever. Someone followed me at like I think it was midnight my time, and then just sent me a DM or mentioned me or something and started. I'm like, dude, what is? I don't even know where you are, but what is your life that you have to it's midnight at minimum? It's midnight. Let's assume that you're a West Coast person, and your first thought was let's just attack Adrian for no reason or whatever, and I can just ignore that and laugh it off and think it's just sad, whatever.
Yeah, no, I completely get that, but I think, yeah, or the only place where you and I would differ is that, like, if it's a situation where, like, I'm trying to have a good faith interaction with people and they just don't budge and they're being rude, then all right, you're getting blocked.
But see,
Or
that's where I respectfully, that's I think where you make a mistake. There's one thing I was joking about this with Spike at Freedom Fest, and I said he had a tweet a while back. I don't know if you remember it, where he said, if someone has to insult you on Twitter, it's because they don't have an argument or something like that. And I was like, I know what you're saying, and I don't want to be this autistic about it, but I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. So when it comes to like, I won't engage with people that don't come at you in good faith. You can almost tell instantaneously, not always,
yes,
but I will say that 90% of the
absolutely.
time you can tell just by looking at their bio and scrolling through 2 seconds of their feed. You can tell if they're coming at you with a genuine question and they want to genuinely interact. And I've had those conversations on Twitter, and then we just agree to disagree and we call it a day, and no one dies, and it's fine. There are people that come at you and it's just like, I'm not going to waste my time giving you an actual argument. I'm just going to say that you're gay and we're going to call it a day and we're going to move on, or whatever. I'm just going to insult you in some witty way. Usually it's not you're gay, it's something actually witty, and then we're just going to move on with my day, and then they'll keep going, right? And it's just, I just laugh, and I might insult them one or two more times depending on how many drinks I've had, and then we're done. But I'm not going to actually have a decent conversation with you or whatever. Yeah. This happened like last week. Someone kept going back and forth, and then so I subtweeted something like, people aren't worth your time or whatever if they can't form some sort of, if their opinion of you is that you're like Mexican Hitler or you misgendered them despite not having, there's nothing on your profile that indicates that you're either a man or a woman, because you won't even put your face on your profile picture. You won't even put, ironically enough, your pronouns or whatever in your bio to let me know that you're like a dude or a chick, and then you get mad about that. You just want to be outraged by something, whatever. I'm not going to spend time trying to argue with you and tell you how I'm not racist or how I'm not a bigot, because you've already formed this thing in your mind. And I've likewise decided that you're retarded. So it's going to take a long time. Like, I'm open-minded to you changing, you proving me wrong, but I'm not going to sit there and, waste my time doing it. So that's what I would say to that, is that I wouldn't engage a lot of these people. It's just not worth it. I just give an insult, and unless they really do come at you with something that's substantive, then we'll go, agree to disagree at the end of the day, if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I do a little bit of that, and sometimes I feel like some people just need to feel the hurt. And I'm starting to, like, it's kind of funny that I'm almost at the point now where like people know what I'm going to say or know what like triggers me and know when I'm going to go after somebody. So you might be at that point too, but it's pretty enjoyable. People, like, if they say something about artificial sweeteners or seed oils or something like that, they're like, oh my God, he's going to come in and give you a licking. I'm like, I try not to be that guy, but people already know.
That's good too, actually. That's not bad. Give them one thing, and then if they something that triggers you, give them one good tweet, and if you can tell if how they respond, if they ask a genuine question, educate them. It's not hard. If they come at you with like, you don't know what you're talking about because you're dumb, then it's like, okay, then you can just insult them back and then call it a day.
Yeah, I think that's what Twitter's mostly for. Unfortunately, I try to use it to spread good information, but it's so funny. Like, I'll put up a tweet that's like very informative, or I'll make a long thread about nutrition stuff, or maybe like, foreign policy stuff, like no traction. But I call someone like gay, or say that like, we should repeal the 19th, or, say something about women, then like, oh my God, my shit blows up. So, it really does incentivize the worst behavior in people. I hate that it's that way, because I wish I could sit here and just tell people, hey, this is what I think about politics. This is what I think about foreign policy. This is what I think about relationships. And this is what I think about nutrition. and like everybody would like it and share it, and I'd get more followers, and people would be like, "Oh my god, my life's so much better this way." But no, it don't work that way. If I call someone an idiot or ratio them, then okay, well that's what gets my follower or my following. That's what grows my following. It's
I'm gonna have to go through your timeline and read some of those nutrition threads. I live on a steady diet of scotch and gummy bears, so I need to. I'm assuming that that's not something that you advocate for, so I'm gonna have to. I got so pumped by your intro because I was like, look at all these men like lifting weights and drinking protein, and I need to learn something there. So I'll have to go through some of those threads.
nice. Well, my DMs are always open. I think that's probably actually a decent place to wrap it. But I do like myself some
I
scotch.
love that. Adrian just said he's not a man. Let's go ahead and wrap up there. That's good. Love it.
No, well, listen, I already give you the compliments. You have the voice of an angel. So if we put a couple inches on them pipes, then dude, I promise you, I don't know what your relationship status is, but I promise it will be better. If you're dating somebody right now, you'll be dating 3 people. Or like, if you're single, then you'll definitely have a girlfriend by the end of all this. I promise.
Well, now I have to say that, that I am dating Meredith, so I have to say that now. Otherwise, she'll kill me later. So there's her shout out. She wanted one. I promised not to give one, but now I kind of opened that door, so there we are.
Meredith came in here.
Oh, there she is, and of course she has. Now she's all excited. Oh, cool. I'm not going to get yelled at later. That's nice.
Okay. Now it all clicks. Okay, beautiful. Well, you know what? She was on the show a couple months ago, and I got to say, I think I like you just a little bit more. So
nice.
Stick that one in a little bit.
Yes. All right.
She's followed me for long enough, so she knows what I'm about, and I think she knows that I'm a very, very reasonable, rational person. And hopefully, she thinks that I'm smart too. So, I don't know. Adrian, go ahead, give your plugs, man, and we'll definitely do this again sometime. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, if you're not following LP National on Twitter, you should do that. It's at LP National. I'm on the LNC there, so follow. We're doing good stuff there. At LP of CA for the California handle, or visit our website at ca.lp.org. Become a member. It's only $25 for state, $25 for national, and every little bit counts. I don't get paid for any of these 4 positions, so please, we need to keep the lights on somehow, and that's how we advance liberty. You can follow me personally at Adrian F. Malagon. It's just my full name, so feel free to follow me there. Sometimes I have a good tweet. Most of them aren't, but every once in a while I have a banger that'll get me, 20 or so followers. So yeah, come check out what we're doing. And obviously California Mises Caucus, so CA Mises Caucus, follow us there or join the Mises Caucus, support the cause.
Beautiful. All right, Adrian, I appreciate your time, and hopefully everybody enjoyed. Make sure you go to the links below. I got some of Adrian's stuff down there as well as all my stuff. And until next time, everybody. Oh, yeah, actually, sorry. In about a half hour, I will be on with Cognitive Vigilance, my Thursday night show with Brandy and Ryan, and that's always a fun show. So until next time, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And Adrian, I appreciate your time one more time, and take care, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.